In 1934, President Franklin Roosevelt placed the Great Seal, originally created in 1782 by the Freemasons, on the dollar bill. Represented in the Great Seal is a pyramid and the all-seeing eye, known to be used by the elusive society, the Illuminati. Strung together in conspiratorial confusion are secret societies such as the Illuminati, the Freemasons, and the Bohemian Club. In 1917, National Geographic did a story on a place in Montreal, California called Bohemian Grove. The story reports a place where the world's elite, members of the Bohemian Club, retreat to in late July and conduct an ancient occult ceremony called the Cremation of Care. Every year in July, the world's leaders, media moguls, and members of the World Bank spend 2 weeks of what is known as a men-only retreat at the Grove. In the year 2000, BBC television show World of Wonder infiltrated Bohemian Grove with hidden cameras and aired the video on the BBC. The video shows the large mass of men donning red and black robes and once again conducting the Cremation of Care ceremony. The altar is at the base of a 200-foot owl, the Babylonian symbol of the god Moloch, the god of human sacrifice. In the video, a body is delivered upriver to the altar where it is set on fire. Upon being aired, members of the Bohemian Club reported that the ceremony is a put-on, merely done for entertainment and fun. This history tells a story of our world leaders having a deep involvement in satanic tradition, worshipping our reptilian overlords, serpent gods. It poses the possibility that we may be and have always been enslaved by our leaders, no different than sheep or cattle. There is an endless amount of information out there which supports this, but don't take my word for it.
I believe that the answer to most of our questions about extraterrestrial visitors lies in the ancient records of the Sumerians. The Sumerian civilization emerged in what is now Iraq about 6,000 years ago. They provided the basis for every great culture that followed them, starting with the Babylonians and Assyrians and on, up to our own modern society. Every aspect of civilization that we consider essential had its first in Sumer. Writing and mathematics, the wheel, the kiln, brick-making, high-rise buildings, kingship, codes of law, astronomy, and much, much more. Many cultures struggled for centuries to advance and to develop. But the Sumerian civilization appeared almost overnight as if planted there.
The Sumerians had detailed knowledge of the solar system thousands of years before modern astronomy. How could they have known?
Most amazing was the Sumerian knowledge of astronomy. They knew of all the planets we know of today, described them in texts, and even depicted them correctly by location and size. The astronomer Copernicus is often said to be the first to prove that the planets orbited around the sun, and that Earth was one of those planets. That was in 1543. But the Sumerians said the same thing 5,500 years earlier. Even more amazing, they described Uranus and Neptune as blue-green twins. Modern science was unable to closely observe these planets until 1986 with the flyby mission of the Voyager probe that found them to be blue-green twins exactly as the Sumerians had described them thousands of years earlier.
Was this a fortunate choice of words for an imaginative Sumerian writer? Or was it based on information from someone who had seen Uranus and Neptune at close range?
And does this mean we found the first UFO 6,000 years in the past?
The Sumerian texts, such as this one, explicitly state that all their advanced knowledge came from those whom they called Anunnaki, literally meaning those who from heaven to earth came.
But where did these visitors come from? Did the Sumerians leave any clues to the origin of the Anunnaki?
Ancient Sumerian writings describe a planet orbiting the sun on an oblique to the others and of such a long orbit that it only makes one complete circuit every 3,600 of our years. They call this world Nibiru, and it was from that world that the Anunnaki came. If this theory is correct, it suggests how an inhabited planet, called Planet X by astronomers, could have once been close enough to Earth for the Anunnaki to reach us with some kind of short-range vehicles.
Does this explain how alien explorers might have come to Earth in spaceships not too different from those we have today?
And if there is a planet such as the Sumerian texts describe, has it not passed by Earth time and time again?
In 1976, author Zecharia Sitchin published his own translations of the Sumerian texts in a series of books called The Earth Chronicles. According to Sitchin, the clay tablets describe an alien race known as the Anunnaki, who came to Earth to mine gold.
Zecharia Sitchin has essentially suggested that the reason why we were visited in the remote past is because the ancient astronauts' home planet needed gold for their atmosphere, and that their gold content in the atmosphere was depleting. So they came to Earth in order to mine gold and bring it back to their home planet.
you remember about Zecharia Sitchin?
Zecharia Sitchin, he is very much a disinformer, and that is his job, to disinform about what is going on with the Illuminati and with the reptilians.
He actually warned me off from investigating the reptilians, interestingly.
When I wrote the first draft of The Facade, which is sort of a novelization of my views on a whole range of things related to UFOs and abductions and all that sort of thing. When I first did that draft, I had never heard of him. I had heard of Eric von Daniken, but I had never heard of Zecharia Sitchin. After I did the first draft and started to have some people read it, I began to hear the name, so I looked him up and got a couple books and read his material. And at first I thought, hey, this is really cool. And I found somebody, because all I had read was the back cover. You know, ancient language scholar, Sumerian scholar, you know, dealing with the topics that I was interested in. I thought, this is pretty cool because somebody has gone this route before and I will have some direction, because frankly there's just nobody who is credentialed in ancient languages who does this sort of thing, who has these interests. And I have to be pretty blunt with you, I was very disappointed. I will say some things tonight, as Guy said, you know, we're all going to go away offended, at least once during the conference. I was really disappointed. I don't think Zecharia Sitchin knows any of the languages. I've said that on Coast to Coast AM, so there's no point in not saying it here. That's the best way I can characterize it. It was a disappointment. When I went on with Art Bell, now 3 years ago, he asked me if I would be willing to debate Zecharia Sitchin. I said, sure, that would be fine, and I have not heard a peep from the Sitchin camp since. Now, I think I know why that is. I think at the end of this, you'll know why it is. I say all that to say this. My gripe with Sitchin is purely academic. I do not think, especially, you have to understand the context from which I'm coming. When you're in graduate school, you do not do things and survive like make arguments without proof, like make things up from ancient texts that just aren't there. You will just be essentially just shot on the spot. Your career is over. Okay, you do not do things like that. And that's what I encountered in Sitchin's works, and plus all sorts of just plain mistakes. Now I want to preface our beginning here by saying, in reference to my title, why you should care about honesty and scholarship. The reason you should care is because maybe there's one of you out in the audience here who has studied an ancient language or two, or maybe has a degree in it, but by and large, someone who picks up Zecharia Sitchin's works, or goes to a website, or looks at this material on the internet, you have no idea how to interact and how to critique this material, because it's not your field. You all have different fields, you all have different interests. I said last week to George Norrie on Coast to Coast, I said, you know, George, if you had this interest, you know, you could do some of this work yourself, but it is not very good for your social life. I'm still astonished that I got married. Okay, I actually said that to him. And I mean, I kind of am. I'm still astonished because it's nerdy, okay, to like to parse verbs, okay? Let's be upfront and honest about it. But there are people who do this. There are people who devote their lives to ancient languages, manuscript studies, cuneiform, whatever. And when you are being fed information related to this material, and the author knows that you cannot check him, that's why you should care. Because you are being sold a bill of goods. We are not on the level here that I disagree with certain translations of tablets. The level we're talking about here is that the material either exists or it doesn't. We're not talking about differences in translation technique. We're talking about fabrication of material.